So it's pretty obvious that FCC Chairman Ajit Pai disagrees with the principle of net neutrality because his former employer, Verizon, disagrees with the principle of net neutrality. And they hate net neutrality so much that they spend millions of dollars every single year lobbying Congress against net neutrality. And they also spend the most amount of time lobbying against net neutrality, according to the Sunlight Foundation. Now, one might question why Ajit Pai would still be doing everything in his power to oppose net neutrality at the behest of a company he no longer works for. But the answer to that is pretty simple. Once he leaves his job at the FCC and gives Verizon, along with other internet service providers, exactly what they've been wanting for years now, they'll most likely hire him right back, and you can guarantee his salary will be higher than ever, and he'll likely get a nice hiring bonus as well, since his decision to unilaterally kill net neutrality will net these companies trillions of dollars in profit. And we know that he's still close with his former employer because just last week, he gave the keynote speech at Verizon's headquarters in Washington, D.C. So, I mean, this is obviously a conflict of interest, and at this point, he's just brazenly shilling for Verizon out in the open, and he doesn't even care about the optics. But Ajit Pai is not ignorant to the criticism he's receiving. In fact, he's very cognizant of the criticism he's received from people like me, and I mean that literally, because at this year's Federal Communications Bar Association, he actually took the time to joke about just how big of a shill he is for Verizon. Now, this is an event stacked with FCC employees, telecom bigwigs, industry insiders. Some actually call it the Telecom Prom, and that's an appropriate name for it because it's where all of the insiders and regulators get together, and it's just one big circle jerk. Now, to demonstrate the types of critiques him and his colleagues have received since they've decided to attack net neutrality, Ajit Pai played a clip from one of his biggest critics, and that critic just so happened to be me. I'm not kidding. So this is how the crowd reacted when they saw me call Ajit Pai and one of his colleagues industry shills.
Many people, perhaps some of you, are still wondering, why was Brendan selected to be a commissioner? And the answer is actually pretty simple. Check it out.
This individual is a complete shill for the industry, and in fact, he may be more pro-corporate than even Ajit Pai.
Damn.
It looks like the crowd really liked my joke, except I wasn't joking. When I called you and Brendan Carr industry shills, I meant it. I based that name on facts, on your history of shilling for the industry and the fact that you came from the industry. So I wasn't just calling them industry shills to be malicious. I called them shills based on the fact that they're shills. And I'm also really glad to know that Ajit Pai watches the Humanist Report. So now that I have your attention, Ajit, allow me to speak to you directly here for a second. You are an evil, robotic, megalomaniacal, limp-dicked prick, and on behalf of all of my fellow Americans, go fuck yourself. We hate you, you evil bastard. How was that insult, Ajit? But now that I've got that out of the way, I want to show you just how morally bankrupt the attendees were at this dinner. Because when the issue of Title II net neutrality came up, specifically when Ajit Pai talked about repealing Title II net neutrality, they literally cheered.
Next week, we will vote to overturn his Title II rules. And
yeah, ruin the internet so we can make more money, Ajit. We love you. I mean, these people are despicable. They don't care at all about how their actions harm the American people. All they care about is fattening their wallets, and it's sickening to me. Now, another thing that we learned was that Ajit Pai is fully aware of the 22 million comments submitted to the FCC where we told them to not repeal net neutrality, but apparently those comments, that was all just a big joke to Ajit Pai as well.
And this being my first chairman's dinner, I thought I could use a little help, so I decided to crowdsource the writing process and ask people to submit jokes. I received 22 million submissions. Now, 7.5 million of them were knock-knock jokes from fakejokegenerator.com. Probably I can't count them.
Now, I don't know if you noticed in that clip, but he actually brought up fake comments, which is an issue that the FCC has refused to address. So that's also a big joke to him as well. Using people's identities to file false complaints against net neutrality, that's a joke to him. He thinks it's funny.
Thank you to tonight's main sponsor, Sinclair Broadcasting. Now, people ask me, well, what keeps you up at night? And that's actually pretty easy. The thought of the FCC having to resolve a retransmission dispute between Verizon and Sinclair. I mean, how do you choose between your longtime love and your newfound crush? Many people are still shell-shocked that I'm up here tonight. They ask themselves, how on earth did this happen? Well, moments before tonight's dinner, somebody leaked a 14-year-old video that helps answer that question. And in all candor, I can no longer hide from the truth. And so I might as well own it. Let's take a look.
Yeah, and the cover charge is $20 as long as we get there by 2 a.m. It should be Oh, come on in.
Hey!
Hey, G, what's up?
What's going on?
Oh, not much. Went to a Three Doors Down concert at the UCI Center last night. It was Oh, yeah, you don't buy MCI for another 3 years.
Oh, right.
Well, what's up?
So I have to talk to you guys.
Okay.
As you know, the FCC is captured by industry, but we think it's not captured enough, so we put up a plan.
On plans, so what do you have in mind?
We want to brainwash and groom a Verizon puppet to install us as a feature.
That sounds awesome.
I know, right? There's only two problems. First, this is going to take 14 years to implement. So we need to find someone smart, young, ambitious, but dorky enough to throw the scent on.
Whoa. But you said there was another issue?
We need to find a Republican who will be able to win the presidency in 2016 and appoint you FCC chairman. I think our best bet is an outsider, but I have no idea who that could be. If only somebody could give us a sign.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how I became chairman of the FCC.
The woman in the video was Kathy Griot, who is literally Verizon's senior vice president and deputy general counsel. Now, he was presumably joking about being a Verizon shill to suggest that the thought that he was shilling for Verizon or that he was a puppet for them is so preposterous that it's funny. But as he's using satire and irony, or trying to at least, to downplay the idea that he's a Verizon puppet by joking about it, he ended up proving just how big of a puppet he really is by featuring a fucking executive from Verizon in his skit. So where's the punchline? Because I don't find that joke very funny since it's true. So it's not a funny joke if you're just stating what's actually true, albeit in a more exaggerated manner. Now, in response to them literally laughing about corruption and how Ajit Pai being the FCC chairman poses a conflict of interest, well, this is what Verizon had to say about this event. We never knew Kathy was so funny. I really have nothing more to say about it. Now, this is what Verizon's chief communications officer had to say. Now, Gizmodo's Del Cameron reports that Verizon refused to say whether or not they actually helped Ajit Pai write the, quote, joke that we just saw, which means they probably did. But Cameron did put it perfectly by summing up this event. America isn't laughing, even if Verizon can't help itself. Now, understand that this video was never meant to be seen by the public. They didn't want these jokes to get out. But we did see it, and Ajit Pai and all of these industry insiders should be absolutely ashamed of themselves because they're laughing about the fact that their puppet is doing something that will harm 300 plus million Americans, and it's sickening. It's not funny. We're not laughing. We don't laugh at things that hurt people. That's not what jokes are about. If your joke requires you to punch down at people that are less powerful than you, then that's not a joke. You're just being a dick. So, I mean, this really shouldn't surprise anyone. I mean, we already know that Ajit Pai is a scumbag, pathetic excuse for a human being. But I mean, to show the extent to which he doesn't care and thinks it's funny, the way in which he's fucking us over, it's honestly nauseating.
Support this podcast by becoming a patron at patreon.com/Humanist Report.